Welcome to Old Man Blerd. Hi, I'm John, and along with my friend Terrence, we make up a pair of lifelong geeks who happen to be black, over 50, but are certainly nerds first and foremost. The Alpha Geek and the Omega Freak. And we welcome everyone. And by everyone, we mean nerds, blerds, and bleaks, cosplayers and role players, geeks and freaks, Marvel zombies and distinguished competitors, Trekkies, Star Warriors, Batmaniacs, and Spider fans, Warhams, Whovians, AFOLs, adult fans of Legos, Tolkienites, Weeaboos, Supernatural hunters and otakus, Ava geeks, bro stars and sis stars, Pokemon trainers, Potterheads, bronies, Whovians, browncoats and Scoobies, and all nerd properties in between. Because we are over 50, we've seen a thing or two and have experience, long experience, with a lot of these properties. So thank you for listening to Old Man Blerd.
Hello! I think you're muted.
There we go.
Hello!
Hello, boy.
Long time no talk to, at least in this format.
Well, we always busy season.
Well, right? How was your holiday?
It started off with a bang.
Oh, first I should probably say, welcome to Old Man Blerd, where we two 50-plus old blerds, that's black nerds to those of you that need the lingo, reminisce and discuss and argue and quibble about any number of things in the wide world of nerd culture. So you were saying that it started with a bang. I think a lot of people's, unfortunately, meaning no humor here, that it started off somewhat negatively the first of the year. But yours, how was this a bang?
I was shot at my job.
You were what?
Shot at my job.
Oh, gosh. That's right.
Told you, it started with a bang.
Yes. Well, that was towards the end of, wasn't that like after Christmas?
No, that was just before Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, just before Thanksgiving. Yeah, so that was it started, the whole holidays started.
That's what I said. You said, how did it start? I told you with a bang. I didn't lie.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. How are you feeling about that? And want to give the listeners a little heads up of how what happened? Because we, as in Colorado, know, but maybe other folks do not.
Well, it's simple. I work at a job, and one of the workers was disgruntled, so he went in to his car and started shooting inside the office where we all commiserate to go to work. So
now, was anybody injured?
4 people.
4 people.
One guy was shot in the butt. One guy was shot in the torso. One guy took 3 rounds of torso. One guy took 1 in the leg.
And these were people he worked with.
Exactly.
Alongside you.
Yes.
Goodness gracious. Well,
yeah. See, that's the bad part about it. I hate to say this because it sounds funny, but stupid at the same time. As a gamer, I looked at it and go, God, he didn't even use a fishing gun.
Yes, I mean, clearly. Thank heaven he didn't use an efficient gun. And you were in a closet of some sort, right? Or,
no, I wasn't
like not the closet, but like you were in a room that was sealed off.
We were in the open office, and he shot out the glass, and time slowed down.
Oh goodness!
Because you start hearing sounds, you're like, why is the glass disappearing? Oh, that's why the glass is disappearing.
And then he went through the glass.
Well, the first 4 rounds took out the glass, and then after that, it started hitting the people.
Oh goodness! But he was outside.
Yes, he was.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, it is, I think statistically, it is a thing that every single person that you know will have gone through some sort of armed gunman type situation, right? I mean, that
I
seems to
understand that,
be.
but 12 years ago, I was getting ready to go see the Superman preview at Batman Dark Knight Returns.
Oh wow. In
And I
Aurora?
was, yep, and I got off work late, so I couldn't make it.
So you would have been in that theater.
Yep.
That
Well, not
specific one. Maybe not that specific one, but that
building.
theater, that building. Like
Yes.
there was multiple, you know,
Right. Right. So it's just
multiple
like, huh,
showings.
huh,
Huh.
huh.
So clearly Final Destination is now your life. And so that was so hanging out. I may take a rain check on that. Hanging
Yeah.
out with you
Okay. Yes, for a while. Yeah, I
till
don't blame you.
till maybe the Grim Reaper decides what he's actually going to do with you. That's crazy. I haven't had anything like that happen yet. And I say
Keep
yet
it together.
because it does sound like something that would
You don't want it on your bucket list. Let's
you
put it
don't
that
want it
way.
on
Just
you
like,
don't want it on your bucket list. So how are the people at work coping with this? Have
oh, the
they
guy who got shot in the leg, he got paid a small amount of money from the actual job. And of course, they're going to the lawyers because he didn't work and they haven't really worked him since. The other two, because one that got shot in the butt, nobody knows what happened to him. He just kind of disappeared. That was his first day. The other two, they're suing for a massive amount.
Yeah, I don't know how much you would actually get. Did the gunman get killed?
No, actually, he disappeared for 12 hours and was finally caught.
So you could definitely sue him for sure,
Well, here's the thing.
civilly.
Thing is that he's going, nothing happened. I didn't do it.
Huh. Well, I think there might be some witnesses there that might
You think
might
so?
might disagree with that notion. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't know it was that close. For some odd reason, when you told me about it weeks ago, I was like, I felt like it was not as visible or as close as it was. Oh my gosh, I feel like really like a poopy friend right now because I'm like, oh my God, you were really actually in danger.
Well, it's like the indoor mat you have in your house. You know what I mean? For the front door.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was about 3 feet from that inside the office. So there was only one person closer, and he was the one that called the police. And it's like, yeah, 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 we don't have to do this again.
Hmm. It seems like they would compensate everyone a little bit for pain and suffering and emotional distress.
Well, I would think that, and this is not because it happened to me. I would think everybody deserves him just throwing a number out there, 25,000. Okay, and I'm talking about everybody was in the office because they have thousands of workers. You know what I mean?
Sure,
So
sure,
everybody in the office that day, I think they deserve 25,000. And then the guy who got shot in the leg, give him like 100, and then step up from there.
sure. Because actually getting shot, that obviously ups the ante. Are you having, do you think, any kind of post-traumatic
Oh, I
stress
did for the
disorder stuff?
first month. I did for the first month.
Like car backfirings, that kind of thing?
No, just more like a surrealness of you. First, you think about it every day, then slowly you don't think about it, but then you start hearing sounds, which were the gunfire, and
Sure,
then eventually you hear that. So you're just like,
sure.
oh. But like I said, that's off my list. Okay, good. Next,
Well,
I don't want to do
anything
Komodo dragons.
anything fun and nerd related that you got to do for the last
Well, I went with
two
a friend of
months?
mine, and I went a second time with my father to the Monopoly Live. I actually love it.
Monopoly Live, they act out the entire thing. Like what you are
Well,
the
it's
you are
more
the
like a game
car, you
show.
are the dog, you are the shoe, you are the iron.
Well, no, it's more like a game show. And
Oh,
what they have teams, and each team is basically represented by four symbols.
mm-hmm.
And you have your guides, for lack of a better term, and they too wear the little symbols in their head. You
Hmm.
know, you know. But they shorten the board. They have the primary things, the utilities. They have two railroads. Stuff like that. But I mean, it's basically like a game show. But
Hmm.
it's just for fun. There's no real thing in it, but I love it.
You know, the woman that created Monopoly created it as a warning against capitalism.
Mhm. right, and she's never
And
given
it's not.
credit unless you really look it up.
She's Aishi. I don't think has been given much credit for it. And B, I think that now people are like, oh no, it's a great game. You want all the money. It's like, no, that was kind of the point. I actually, that is something to look up. Creator of Monopoly. Because
Yeah, it was the original name of the game.
I
The original
forget
name of
her
the game was
name.
Landlord. You look up the
Lizzie
game Landlord.
looks like it's Lizzie Maggie. And I guess the Parker brothers then bought it from her. Yeah.
Right.
I hope it's pronounced correctly. Elizabeth Maggie.
Mm.
Magie. I thought that there was a show about her. Yeah, and it was called The Landlord's Game,
Right.
which right now, considering what landlords are like, I sympathize because I'm paying probably $1,000 more in rent than I was when I first started here, and
Well,
only I guess
it's not just
9 years
that.
ago.
Is part of geekdom is we have our psychological purchases.
Sure,
So we don't do like that fool did at my job.
sure,
And I'm not excusing, because some of us, I mean, Corbin Bernstein, if I mentioned once in one of our earlier podcasts, he has almost 10,000 snow globes,
oh
but
wow,
he's never cheated on his wife. He never winds up in the news badly. You understand what
no,
I'm saying?
he just has
And,
snow
and that's
globes.
what, and that's what the dull, that's why I call the main public versus geeks. The dull don't
Sure,
understand.
yeah, sure. Well, what kind of geeky things have you been up to?
Well, other than that, I have been on eBay basically ordering like a madman foreign comics, as in the foreign version. I got the foreign version of Moon Knight #1 from the 80s that was French. And
Oh
I thought
wow.
it was pretty ironic considering that his right hand man is French, hence the name Frenchie. So,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it's interesting because the art styles, they do one of three things. They reproduce the, you know, panel for panel art style,
Mm-hmm.
or they do their own variation, or they just do basically an open splash page.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah, I Moon Knight is he's as convoluted as Hawkman is in DC. I mean,
Yes.
it's like, does he
Comic.
have? Yes, it's like, does he have three personalities? Is there three different dudes? Is there one guy who, Hawkman is kind of the same way. It's like, is he an Egyptian god? Is he, is he from another planet? You know, didn't they do that with Hawkman for a bit?
Well, they did it. They did him being the Egyptian god in his soul, between him and Hawkgirl just traverse time and space. That was the
Hmm.
idea. And then when they did Justice League Unlimited, they had Hawkgirl, and from there they decided to make into a race
Ah, see.
in Justice League Unlimited, which was interesting because she was the heroine and Hawkman was actually, you know, a villain.
Wait, wait, Justice League Unlimited? How long ago was that? Because Hawkman, I thought, was in the All-Star Squadron Golden Age.
No, no, I'm talking about the Justice League Unlimited TV show.
Oh, the TV show. Oh, excuse me. I
Because they even borrowed a bit from of all things, uh what is it, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
mhm.
The Hawkmen were going to destroy the Earth for a hyperspace throughway.
Ah, like what is it, Thanagarians or something like that?
Yep.
Hmm. What
Yeah.
is it in comic book continuity? Because I thought it was a dude, and then he was also then it was like a god or some type of avatar of a god, and then there
That's
was
exactly what he became, an avatar of the god, and then they started doing the other things. I mean, him and Doctor Fate, even though Doctor Fate's avatar basically lives as a channel through the helmet,
sure.
you know. And then that's one of the things they play off because sometimes the helmet's invincible and sometimes the helmet's not so much invincible as it gets destroyed, but it reforms itself or even just teleports at the last nanosecond.
I never got a good sense of Dr. Fate. I know that he was sort of Doctor Strange's sort of the Doctor Strange of the DC universe. But I never really got a sense of him. I did read that Alan Moore. God, I think it was Alan Moore Swamp Thing issue 50. And they were all of the magicians of the DC universe were trying to deal with um I guess it was sort of the fallout of the crisis and all that sort of thing. And he was in that, and it was kind of like him and Constantine and Zatanna's father and all of that sort of thing. But
Well, yeah, because the first I guess you say semi-mystic superhero because there's Mandrake, but there was also one that came out at the same time, give or take a year.
mhm,
And that was Doctor Occult, and that was by DC. So you could say technically he's the first DC, you know, supernatural hero.
there you
He's
go.
getting a rebirth this year, and he was basically pre-Constantine. Constantine. The only difference is that Constantine made deals and bargains. You know what I mean? But
Sure.
otherwise, he could give Constantine a run for his money.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the same thing they did with Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing initially they had it that Alec had come back,
Hmm.
and then they changed it that actually the Green had borrowed him as an avatar. He was gone, but his essence as in, the memory patterns
Sure.
were trapped in the Green, and hence he does have a second life.
Sure. I mean, they sort of made Swamp Thing into a swamp elemental that represents the green, and somehow they needed Holland to be sort of a intermediary or something for it. But Swamp Thing, Alan Moore, excellent, super excellent. Well, I think this episode, before we spin off in other conversations, we were going to talk about some New Year's nerd resolutions and maybe the Superman trailer. Have you seen it now? You've seen it. Of
Yes,
course
I
you've seen
have.
it. You have some opinions. So we'll probably do that first. And
Either way,
then maybe a little bit of Marvel Rivals, which I've been playing for the last little bit of time. Fun game. So, Superman, James Gunn, who did all of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, correct? Or at least
right, right. He did all of them, and he
it,
came over to DC
yeah, I mean,
because they're
which
trying to
and
give him the Kevin part now.
sure. And I mean, listeners can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel like the Guardians movies were some of the more critically acclaimed Marvel movies. I think people liked Endgame and Infinite, what was it? Infinity War was it called? I don't remember what first part of the Thanos saga was called.
Right.
Um,
They
but
like that, and they also liked Thor.
they liked
Uh, Thor
Ragnarok with
one, and they skipped
they
over two. They
no.
really don't like two.
But they liked Ragnarok, which was by the gentleman Taika Waititi, I believe is his name, who does What We Do in the Shadows and a lot of other
Right.
good stuff. And so James Gunn, because he was doing some of the more fun, critically acclaimed and fan favorite movies of the Guardians of the Galaxy, because those hit just about every single one of those was like really good. I mean, certainly the first and the second. Well, I guess the second was maybe not quite as well received as the third, but they were all pretty
Mhm.
well received. Um,
Well,
and
my big problem with them was they were all daddy issues.
yes, well,
They,
that's
that was my only problem. They all literally daddy issues. First issue, first episode, Thanos.
sure.
Second, Ego. Third, the evolutionary.
Sure.
He's talking to
Well,
his
but
kids.
comic books as a medium would probably cease to exist without daddy issues. So, I mean, let's be honest. It's like, okay, Pa Kent, Thomas Wayne, Uncle Ben, Bruce Banner's dad who is abusive. Um,
Right,
I
right,
mean,
right.
without really terrible or absent or really great and absent fathers, there would be no comic book medium, pretty
Well, to a degree,
much.
I agree. But the part I would say is that they all had difficult fathers. It wasn't like one of them had, I mean, we could say Yando, you understand? But
Sure.
otherwise, they had difficult fathers in their whole
You're talking
series.
about in the Guardians series.
You're right in the movies, and
Sure.
so I mean, Because I mean, when we talk about comic books, you're right. Daddy issues is part, and the other part of it is bullyism.
Well,
You know,
I think if you were to take daddy issues and bullying out of comic books, you probably wouldn't have much left, really.
right? Because the best example of a fan. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they said it once in Friday the 13th, the only episode that dealt with comic book. Okay, one of the
Mm-hmm.
characters was talking about the importance of comics, but I'm going to skip that because not everybody's seen that. That's kind of obscure. I'm going to say Spy Kids when the father,
Uh-huh.
who's a master spy and master martial artist, and he goes to the school, and the bully father gets
Mm-hmm.
ready, and he has his vision of what he would do. That's basically what comic books does. Is it rights a wrong in
So,
immediacy?
yeah, so one of the reasons why people get into, at least once upon a time, got into comic books, I think a long time ago, it was just the equivalent of video games. Every kid got into comic books. But as comic books after Wortham, I think Wortham wrote Seduction of the Innocent, and you got the Comic Code Authority, and all of the comics were burned, and you got rid of all the EC comics and everything else. And in comes basically romance comic books and other sort of acceptable forms of comic books until the Silver Age, I think that it got more and more marginalized, I think, comic books in general. And then even after the Silver Age, I think that by the time you get to us being children, comic books were pretty marginalized. So the people who were reading them were playing D&D and into fantasy and sci-fi, and it wasn't what everybody mainstream was doing. And so those people typically did get bullied and those people did get abused. And so it was an outlet. So I don't know how that I mean, because really, if you think about the difference between, say, the Golden Age, and the Silver Age, that there's a difference there. It's almost like they sort of enshrine
Well,
the geek with the Silver Age.
the difference is the same problem we have today. What I mean is we have a-holes rule the world. And what I mean by that someone does, like the person who was shooting at my job,
Sure.
they're going to change certain things, don't know, they haven't done anything yet, because that's usually what happens, is why I say that.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes the people who wouldn't do such thing suffer.
Sure.
And where I'm going with it is the same thing with comic books. In the golden age, you had World War One, and comics were basically something in the newspaper, and hence the book became a format to keep it together so that you can basically see the comics you can see by day by day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. World War Two happened, and then you had the problem that, Superman, just before the war, he solved the war by throwing one general, and, the other general didn't want the same fate. And I'm
Sure.
talking about miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And so, they had to tone down the character. They had to become an ally. They had to help. Some things were beyond them, a greater evil, blah,
Sure.
blah, blah, blah.
They became something that GIs read during the war too. Is like, oh, here's Captain America punching out Hitler, those kinds of
Exactly.
things. Um,
Exactly. And see what the problem is that they have lost because to me, one of the best teams outside of Powers, you know,
mhm,
it was two of them. One, and both of them were DC, and it's not because I'm a DC fan, it's because what they represented. The losers, before they made them into supernatural or high tech, because they did all that stuff, alteration in the 90s,
sure.
were just basically the bottom rung of the military.
And didn't they
Who
make
st-
they made a movie about the
that's when
losers?
they changed them to high tech and stuff. But I'm saying when they
Sure,
were the bottom rung in the military, it's like the guy who couldn't do enough push ups, person who was crazy about his dog, even though, he needed to do his job. But he still got the job done. That was the beauty of the losers.
hmm,
And then you had the challengers of the unknown, and they were like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but I'm coming back out of here.
hmm,
You know, which are both admirable traits. You understand? I
hmm.
mean, because uh, Marvel didn't quite have the same thing. Because I mean, he tried to with Nick Fury, but
Sure.
Nick Fury was basically had plot armor. It
Yeah,
wasn't that he was a bad character. I mean, because you would lose people in both of the series. But Nick Fury, he had plot armor, and to a degree, you could say Sergeant Rock did too.
sure.
But Sergeant Rock was supposed to be, killed by the last bullet, enlisted in the first draft. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, he was basically like Glendale as in the comic book character or the Phantom. Where it just goes on generation, even though in essence it was supposed to be one person.
Hmm.
We kind of have that if you really think off the subject level, because I've been wondering about that. What one actor has been in everything?
I
You talk about
oh
at a certain age. You understand what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because I mean, let's say Christopher Lee, because he basically did James Bond, Star Wars,
the Wicker Man.
The Wicker Man, Lord of the Rings.
Sure, he
I
did
mean,
a little. I mean, he was Benedict Cumberbatch before Benedict Cumberbatch, in that he was in all the nerdish properties.
exactly. And you have to wonder who not so much was the star, but I'm gonna go a little bit further, but was the background
Hmm.
person. Well, that was like, yeah, I always played a zombie or the hitman or something. I mean, you're like, because there's just certain actors. It's not even them as in they're tough. Because I mean, the best example is God. What is that? Mayhem, the
Hmm.
actor who plays Mayhem. You know,
Hmm.
a few times he's acted outside the part. You basically know either something's going to happen one way or the other. Either he's going to be very good or he can be very bad.
Sure.
You
But
know,
but this is all around the James Gunn sort of thing. Is that James Gunn, bring it back to the original point. James
yeah,
Gunn, popular because of all that stuff. The Guardians of the Galaxy got the reins to do the DC universe, right?
right. My only problem with that is that they forgot DC basically created the multiverse.
Uh, yeah, I don't think they forgot it. I just don't. I think that everybody just assumes that everything with comic books has some kind of multiverse. I think that the Marvel Comics cinematic universe got into the multiverse a little quicker than DC did. Although
Well, yeah,
what I had heard is that the Flash movie that has the Batman in it with, Ezra, what is it, Ezra Miller being the
Miller.
Flash
Yes,
and
yes.
you know, uh Keaton being the Batman, that was supposed to be the initial spin-off vehicle that Gunn wanted to spin off his DC universe, but because Ezra Miller uh allegedly, I'm to cover us, did multiple crimes across state lines,
Yes.
that kind of blew up. And kind of the same way that Jonathan Majors, playing Kane, allegedly did a bunch of crimes and blew up the multiverse in Marvel. Seems like the
Was
multiverse is the thing that's just going to get blown up whenever someone does it.
But
Um,
see, that's what I was saying earlier about the real world in someone doing something. I mean, because we know as geeks,
mhm,
leaks, birds, whatever, we know that there are so many things. Like Kane is a good example. They could have Doctor Doom because they want to make him the focus,
mhm,
try to kill Kane,
mhm.
and Kane not die,
Sure.
but it alters his appearance across the multiverse.
Yeah, they could
That's
do
it.
that. Yeah, they could have done that.
You
They could have but the problem I think that Marvel has, and I don't know if DC has had this same problem, but the problem I feel like that Marvel has is that they don't typically have people that are really embedded in comic books trying to hash this stuff out. I mean, they have a knowledge, but and maybe there's been some comic book writers that have been really involved, but to me, the Kang thing could have very easily been switcherooed and still been Kang. But instead, they were
exactly.
like, let's scrap the whole Kang thing, and now it's Doctor Doom, and we're bringing Robert Downey Jr. back in, which, most fans have not liked. But that said, James Gunn
But
has
James
Superman,
Gunn,
is starting a
and he
Superman
has a
thing. It-
scrappy crypto.
yes.
That's
So
the one.
so back to James Gunn, back to Superman. What did you think of the Superman trailer?
Oh, I loved it.
Okay.
Period. I mean,
Well,
there's
there
no
we
other
go.
way about it. I loved it. You
Yeah.
know, it's
I-
it's confusing, but they already said, unlike all the other superhero movies, the world is already established.
Well, I think that he has started off saying, and this is pretty smart. I think. He's already started off saying everybody knows the origin. You don't need to do a Superman origin. I mean, people may not have known a Tony Stark origin. I would think that virtually everybody knows a Spider-Man origin at this point, and certainly Batman and Superman. So you don't really need to start with, oh, he's from Krypton and the sun gives him powers and he gets adopted by this farm family where his rocket crash landed. You don't need to really do any of that stuff because everybody knows it. I mean, people know those archetypes of these superheroes about as well as some people know, arguably some better than people probably know characters in the Bible. So,
Now you're getting us in trouble.
yeah, well, but it's true though. I mean, if I say, what did Esther do or Samson, some people might know, but Samson's probably a better one. What did Samson do?
Yeah,
A lot of people might know, a lot of people don't. You say, what did
right.
Superman do or what was his origin? A lot of people know. That's not a value judgment. I know a crap ton more about comic books than I don't know about any number of religious figures from history. That said, though, I felt like they made some really good choices. They, first of all, doing the John Williams theme, which is Superman's theme. Let's just call it a day and say if you're going to do Superman in a television show or a movie, you got to have the John Williams theme. They did that. They used the trunks, which I heard was, kind of at one point, this big bone of contention. And someone explained it to him saying, hey, no, that makes him look like a wrestler. So it's like a costume that kids would feel okay with seeing him in, which makes sense, actually, because yeah, he's like a strong, it initially came from being a strong man, I thought.
Well, yeah, because it came from vaudevillian, a combination of things, but one of them was a vaudevillian strongman, and they had like three or four of them.
Yeah, they
They
had
had
boots
essence
and
of, of
yeah, yeah, they had the
you know,
boots and the trunks.
I mean, because getting off the subject entirely for half a second, there was a guy about 15 years ago that was one of the last one, and he literally got hit by a car and
Oh
lived
goodness.
another 8 weeks, and he was 100 plus.
Who
He
that
was Superman.
Oh
Because
wow. Yeah, well there you go. And
I
they used
mean,
to
here
wear
again, we get hit by a car at 100, we're going down dead.
sure,
Not
and
weeks later.
I think it really pays it's really reasonable to have that homage. Look, superhero costumes look ridiculous when they're three-dimensional. They do. A lot of them look ridiculous. On a comic book page, you just never question the Flash. The Flash looks great, and you're just fine, and you roll with it. Seeing someone dressed like that in a television show, which I thought that television show was really good, you're like, oh my God, that does sort of look ridiculous. But with Superman, you can just I mean, that is sort of superhero 101, his costume. It's got the boots, it's got the trunks, it's got the cape. I mean, and it's classic and I think it's fine. And I thought that, the trailer with the music was great. The trunks were great. Seeing Guy Gardner, which a whole bunch of people online did not know Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern, who that was. It's like, wow, that's a terrible haircut. It's like, yes, that's Guy Gardner. Guy Gardner, one of the biggest jerks in all of DC Comics. But if I recall, and you are the DC guy more than I am, I'm more the Marvel guy. I thought that the ring would have gone to him if he had been closer. Like
Gone to who?
gone to Guy Gardner.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
when the alien, what was it? What was it? Amon Sul?
Soul. Soul. Yes.
Yeah, when he crash landed and the ring was looking for a new host, it picked Hal Jordan. But if Guy Gardner had been closer, it would have picked Guy Gardner. So I don't know, how did Guy Gardner get a ring in the first place when they decided Earth needed more than one Green Lantern? Like
Well,
whole
there's always been a
whole huge
reason.
sectors have one Green Lantern. Our planet has like three,
8.
eight. There's Guy Gardner, there's Hal Jordan, right?
John Stewart.
John Stewart, which they're making a television show, right? They're making a John Stewart television show.
Right. Alan Scott.
Alan Scott. Although Alan
And,
Scott's ring wasn't technically a Green Lantern ring, though. But it wasn't
well, it is more they recon it to make it a ring,
sure.
technically. And then there are a couple others that everybody forgets. But the thing was is that Alan, he was basically Earth 2. So Earth 1 needed one Hal Jordan. And then as far as the others came, they realized that Jordan had to go on a mission. So hence John Stewart had to be there, and they weren't going to take the ring back. That's what
Sure.
happened there. And
Okay.
then Guy Gardner is like what you said. Again, there was another moment. They're like, okay, we need 2 of you now.
Yeah, because my Green Lantern lore is pretty weak, I have to admit, because most of my experiences of Green Lantern come post-Crisis. So, and that's post first Crisis, 1985's Crisis on
Well,
Infinite Earths.
you just got to remember 2 simple rules. Marvel does the best mysticism, and DC does the best straight sci-fi. That's it. That's not
Yeah,
even opinions. That's best way to put it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Reed Richards does some wild things, but
sure,
I'm talking about the whole universe as a whole universe. And then you also got to remember the DC universe versus the Marvel universe. There are 8 billion people, just throwing that number out there. DC universe, you might have 3 billion supernaturals. That includes the Atlanteans.
sure,
That includes the Homo Magi. You know,
sure.
Marvel
Orion and
universe,
all that stuff.
yes, 8 billion people, you have almost 7 billion people that are supernatural. That includes the mutants and
Yeah,
everything else.
you do
So
have
it's like no big deal.
you do have quite a few metahumans. It's metahumans in DC. It's superhumans or mutants or
Whatever.
and Mar or whatever in Marvel. Now, what I would say is that DC has. Here's the thing I think, and this may be a hot take, but I think DC may have the best sort of fleshed out sci-fi in some ways. Uh Marvel probably has in many regards some of the best fleshed out alter egos, I think.
Well, not only that, it's DC is more of gods trying to be men, while Marvel is men trying to be gods.
Yeah,
That's
I
that.
mean the superheroes of the DC universe are these big, larger than life icons, whereas they're kind of that way in Marvel, but they're much more accessible because they can't pay rent or they get divorced, or in the case of Yellow Jacket and the Wasp, they have domestic troubles and maybe even domestic violence.
Right. And see
So
that harkens back to also with DC in like Mr. Terrific. They try to always say, what's the equivalent or black equivalent of Iron Man? And
mhm,
it depends upon who you ask. What I mean, suit wise, it could be hardware from Milestone. It could be steel from the mainstream DC universe. But as far as tech, then you have to say Mr. Terrific. And hence in the preview when he's using the nanospheres, which is his overall weapon, if you will,
yeah,
because it's so mutable what they can do. Hence the force fields,
sure.
what I mean. They
What about
challenge him all the time, speaking 3 different languages at the same time, which increases his intellect.
Cyborg? Cyborg's dad,
Cyborg,
anyway.
yeah, Cyborg's dead, but it doesn't, again, doesn't count because when they recon him, of course, he became part of Mother Box. But before that, it was just his father going, I just don't want my son to die.
Sure. And he was a
Yeah.
scientist and everything else. I would argue they both have moments of doing it really well. That's not just because I have read more Marvel than DC, but I think that you can't beat the Green Lantern Corps for a fleshed out space universe. I do think Marvel made great headway with Abnett and Lanning's works when they were the ones that sort of retconned and sort of integrated the newest Guardians of the Galaxy. The Guardians of the Galaxy that ended up on film was really the Guardians of the Galaxy during Abnett and Lanning writing and really doing a really bang up job. Come on, Dougie. Doing a bang up job of redoing all of Marvel's space stuff. And so they brought in Rocket Raccoon and they brought in Drax and they brought in Gamora and Star Fox and made them. It was a really good run. That particular run of Guardians of the Galaxy was great, and that's what they ended up basing that particular team um, for the movies that James Gunn did.
Yeah, because they took all the independent, basically, Groot is a good example.
Sure,
He was a monster, as a Monsters Among Us. That's his first appearance, you
sure,
know.
yeah,
And I mean, they just took all these random because like Rocket Raccoon was of all things in an issue of the Hulk,
yeah. That
where
that Hulk issue used to be a quarter book staple. If you went to a comic store and they had like 50-cent books like
that
wrote,
was it.
that was in there. And now that's a, $100 book now or whatever it is.
Yeah, if you got a pristine blah 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 blah, like a nine is like almost a thou. You're like, okay.
Yeah, so I mean it's pretty crazy. But I do
But that's
think
the way when they'll understand when we talk about our hobby and making money, they'll go, well, it's like stock. Literally, it's like Scott stock because in our case we have the grave diggers as in the grave dig. Okay, this was the artist's first work.
hmm
This was first appearance of the character. This was the first writer's first line.
hmm
You know, or this was the first controversy. They'll find stuff that's, well, that was so controversial, and we didn't think about it because we were just looking at story or we're looking at a character.
hmm
I mean, the episode where Superman had Lois Lane, took her to the Fortress of Solitude. It was back, in the black exploitation, and she wouldn't know what it was to be a black woman.
Oh God,
And
yes.
he exposed her to a machine that made her black.
Yeah, fun.
And and here's the thing is
There
that
was some
she's like, "Would you marry me now?" And he never answered. You're like, okay,
hmm.
wow, ow.
Yeah, so well, yeah, so I mean some clumsy sort of desires for efforts to have some kind of racial understanding. But yeah, so I mean, I think both do sci-fi. I mean, all ultimately all comic books are sci-fi, all of them. Everybody's gotten some kind of scientific weirdo kind of thing that caused their powers or comes from another planet, which is again sci-fi. Uh,
I
but
understand that, but some of better could be described as sci probable. Sci probable could be Mr. Terrific. That's a stretch. More like the Knight Rider, uh, $6 Million Man. You know,
sure,
those are sci probable. If we dedicated, made that our X Games, we could have it. You
sure.
know,
Iron Man is far more sci-probable now than he used to be. But with back to the gun trailer, I thought that the music was good. Using the trunks was good. And of course, crypto.
right?
Which that first episode, that first issue of crypto, I think it's in Adventure Comics something, maybe like 100 something, uh, has skyrocketed in price. Not that it was
Yeah.
ever cheap to begin with. I think it was always $1,000 book anyway. I mean,
It was
it's
always about 2K because of his age. But
yeah,
now
because
that
it's an
movies
old
are
book.
taken,
It's a fairly old book. I mean, it's 50s, right? Maybe,
right,
yeah, yeah, that's
50s.
certain
And
50
see, that's one
something.
of the arguments. You have all these the one thing I don't like, you have all the fanboys wannabe who run around and they'll go, that's the most stupid, most cringe, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, dude,
It's
you don't
crypto.
understand the time period. Well, no, it's the time period.
Sure,
The time period, number one, they had Lassie, they had Rin Tin Tin. So they were trying to get that audience.
sure,
And then also, let's think of it from a practical point of view. You are a scientist and you're going to sing your child in the middle of nowhere.
sure.
They don't know how it's going to work.
So it is Adventure Comics 210, 1955.
Mm-hmm. Because that's where
So
you got the origin of crypto and Beepo.
yeah, and crypto's great. I mean, I think that people love dogs. I think people who are actual comic fans are like, oh, that's fine. Because, if anything, this because of all the things that are happening with politically and socially and everything's just out of control, I think having a nice Superman with a nice dog is a refreshing change of pace. We've had multiple conversations you and I on Old Man Blerd about the modern age and everything being grim and gritty and everything else. And I love Wolverine and Deadpool, but I mean, not everything needs to be Wolverine and Deadpool, and not everything needs to from DC needs to be Batman. I mean, Batman, very influential, very great character. Yes, grim, gritty, dark, Gotham, yes. That's not what Superman is, and that's not what Flash is, and that's not what Green Lantern is, and not what Wonder Woman is, and it's not what any number of heroes in the DC universe are.
Well, yeah,
There
because
are
we know we're
fewer
supposed to.
grim and gritty
Well,
folks than there are in Marvel, arguably.
well, yeah, because the idea is different mindsets. What I mean is like the Flash, and they said it more in the TV show than anything,
Hmm.
was that, you know, he's laid back because nothing can really hurt him
Hmm.
because he can get out the way.
Hmm.
So that's something to really consider. If you really couldn't just be hurt, you know, that makes you have a different mindset. And then, it just goes on from there as far as the character, because Superman has always supposed to be hope, even the grittiness in the 30s.
Sure.
You know,
And
someone's going to come out here.
when he was beating up landlords, see, we brought it all the way back in. He was beating up
Yes.
slumlords. He was a socialist character beating up slumlords. Yes.
Yes.
Um,
And the problem with our society now is that so many of our generation have, and I'm talking about X, yes, X.
mhm.
We are the problem. What I mean is single mothers, single fathers, even, problem homes. And we, I didn't say we didn't have problems, but we like that escapism.
Sure.
The new generations, they want to bring that in to identify. Well, and sometimes identification can harm the product.
Can you hear my granddaughter in the background?
Nope,
Nope.
nope.
Oh, wow. Okay. She's screaming very loudly. It's funny and cute. Yeah, but and I
I
think
mean,
that,
because the cynicism was supposed to come in through Guy Gardner is a good example. Or
sure.
when they had the Green Lantern, as in John Stewart, with Green Arrow, or they
Hmm.
had it with Green Lantern himself, doing the Denny days.
Sure. Well, the
So
Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams Green Lantern,
that's why
Green
I said the
Arrow.
Denny
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, I mean, and that was fine. But not everything has to be that way. And I think right now, excuse me, I'm much more interested in a
Escape.
more, well, yeah, that and a much more positive version of reality. Because I mean, at this point, we are in a situation where, we have elected a person that could conceivably make things harder for a lot of people.
Change things.
Change things. A change agent. And, that's all well and good, but there's some uncertainty there. And, I'm not going to launch into a political diatribe, but I think my views of the incoming administration are pretty well known at this point. I
Certain
think that
situations.
yeah, I think that, there's a desire for something positive. And I think that right now, America in particular is drowning in a lot of cynicism, a lot of negativity, a lot of uncertainty. And yeah, it's just comic books, sure, but it's nice to have an image of something to look up to. I mean, I feel like comic books were my sort of first example of, oh, well, this is good and this is bad and this is right and this is wrong. I mean, I think my comic book reading predated any type of going to church that my parents made me do by at
Well,
least a few years. And that first Superman, when did that first Superman with Christopher Lee come out? 77?
no, it was 70, 78.
Yeah.
It was on the cusp of Christmas in January. That's why it's that way.
Yeah, and so that was the first superhero movie I ever saw. And I remember I was just starting to read comic books. I hadn't read enough comic books at that point to know and my anything. I mean, it was just whatever my parents bought me, and that was Gold Key, Woody Woodpeckers, and Richie Rich, and Archie and Jughead, and the occasional superhero. And, uh, Superman was the first sort of superhero I sort of encountered in a big way. I did, even though I didn't read a whole lot of Superman comic books, because there was, this was the late 70s, early 80s. Marvel was really king at that point. And
Yeah,
at
it was
this,
starting to get to it in the early '80s. It was in the mid '80s they were working.
yeah, and so, the likelihood of getting a DC comic was probably about as half as likely as it was getting a Marvel one. Uh, at least at the 7-Elevens that I would go to. And, I just, for whatever reason, I just gravitated to them. But Superman, I did read. I did read those World's Finest. I did read those Action Comics issues. I did keep up with Superman when they did the reboot, that John Byrne did with Man of Steel and Superman and, after post Crisis on Infinite Earths. And he is a just a he's just a gosh darn ray of sunshine, and sometimes you need that.
Well, that's what James Gunn did say is that heroes have gotten so dark, so he wanted to make it fun.
Mhm.
And I'll give him that. But like I said, I don't like them throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's not just because it's DC, it's all of them with the reboot Spider-Man. You know, I mean, Spider-Man No Way Home gave him some redemption, but I mean, with all the streaming services, there's no
Mhm.
reason why they can't, you know, splurge and spend 30 or 40 million because they always complain about how they have this money they lose or spend anyway, you understand? And
Sure.
do a couple of TV movies. And I mean
Mhm.
that just to wrap it up, and I like how a comedian said it about her TV show that ended last year is how I mean wrap it up. She's like, yeah, it's just like we're on a plane ride on this journey and we get off here.
Yeah.
So they don't have to kill the character, they don't have to retire the character.
No.
But like Brandon Roth, it would be nice if he could do two more TV movies. You understand? And done with his character.
Mhm.
It'd be the same thing with see how the Snyderverse would have been. Yes, we could talk about Miller, but then again, in the Flash TV show, Miller met the TV show Flash. You understand?
Sure.
So I mean, there again, we can keep altering things because the problem I have with fandom now is we cater to, well, I don't want to support that, and I know you're a strong person of that, but I'm like,
What?
there's a certain point that do you want the product or not? It doesn't.
Supporting what? Like just supporting different things?
No, supporting like Miller. I'm not gonna support the Flash because of what he did.
Oh,
And it's not
I
the
don't care.
character's
Yeah, I don't
fault.
care.
You,
Yeah, I
you
don't
see what I'm
care.
saying? Because
Yeah.
some people that's exactly what they do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I think some
Or
people are really locked into representation and wanting it to look a certain way. And to me, I just like comics, you know? I don't need I don't need every comic book to be switched in terms of, gender or race. I do like all of the characters and I do like the way some of the interpretations that people have. But I mean, Superman I feel like is he's not a grim and gritty dude, you
well,
know?
it's not just that. It's like I was saying about DC and sci-fi. You can't get no more sci-fi than you have the Yellow Lanterns. One of their worst is a virus, a living virus.
Mm-hmm.
So it prides itself in the fear of you dying from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Green Lantern, they have a living mathematical equation, which is a representation of willpower.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't get no more sci-fi than that.
Sure.
But but then Marvel with the Dark Hold, you
Mm-hmm.
know, you can't get no more mystic than that.
It's true. I do think that you and the Doctor Strange and all of that stuff and the Ghost Rider and
Well, Doctor Strange is just a masterpiece for all the ways they had come up with the names for his spells.
yeah.
I mean, that to me, above all, I mean, we could talk about the hand placement, you
Mm-hmm.
know, as far as
Sure.
doing the semantics with the hands, but I mean, as far
Sure.
as the actual name, so they all are not the same.
Sure. Yeah, he's doing weird stuff. He's doing some weird stuff. But I mean as far as a trailer showing Mr. Terrific, showing Guy Gardner, showing Hawk Girl,
A
showing
dragon.
Yeah, showing a big giant dragon, showing Superman saving a little girl, showing Lois and Clark, showing Lois and Superman. I just thought it was like it really it gave me and my wife nostalgia tears for sure. 'Cause it was just like things have been rather, I don't know, bleak. Excuse me for having to clear my throat over and over again. But things have been rather bleak for a few months in any number of ways. And it was just this nice little ray of sunshine. It's like, yeah, it's almost like that Paul McCartney song, Silly Love Songs.
Right.
He had gotten criticized by a music critic for writing silly love songs. So he wrote that song, Silly Love Songs. It's like all you ever do is write silly love songs. But it's like, no, sometimes the world needs a silly love song, and
Oh,
sometimes the world needs, a guy in a red and blue costume flying and catching stuff and righting wrongs because at this point, even though we as people have a ton of power, we feel pretty powerless when it comes to standing up against billionaires, standing up against environmental polluters, standing up against weird racists and sexists and homophobes and transphobes and all of the phobes. And so sometimes just being able to see somebody just punch that into in the face.
oh yeah,
It's-
there's no other way to put it because I mean, part of the problem with our society, this is slightly political, but it's true, is that we as citizens in America have gotten to a point in about 10 years we're all going to have to be paralegals just to be a citizen
Mhm.
because there's too many laws and there's too many ways people can get away with things,
Oh, sure.
you know. And I mean, like the person who shot at me, he was saying he didn't do it. Okay, you're going to defend it, yet we have it on camera. I mean, there's certain points that, in superhero reality that wouldn't happen.
No,
That wouldn't happen.
somebody would hold him outside of a building by his ankles and he would then confess. Batman probably. Uh
Yeah.
um yeah, I mean because there's so much injustice in the world.
And
Um
we hide behind the fact that we go, well, they had a terrible childhood. That's not an excuse.
No, most of the superhero people most of their origin stories are they're being terrible, having terrible
Mm.
childhoods. I mean, I
Mm.
don't think anybody seeing their parents killed in an alley after a movie theater is going. I mean, that was the beauty of Arkham, Arkham Asylum, that Grant Morrison graphic novel where he talked. Yeah, it's like no, all of those bad guys had bad days, but so did Bruce. All of them had a bad day, but so did Bruce. And so even though Bruce it can be, depending on who writes him, the Batman, Bruce Wayne, he can be a real stick in the mud. He really is a person that doesn't want to see anybody die. Doesn't want to see
Yeah.
anybody be victimized. And
And he always has hope because that's one thing a writer pointed out in an article about 3 months ago. He said, have you ever noticed, Commissioner Gordon, Mr. Freeze, you know,
hmm
well, Batman would say doctor.
hmm
You see what I'm saying? Or the Joker, if he knows his name, depending upon who writes it, you understand, Arthur or whatever name they want to give him, you get the point.
hmm
Or the Riddler, Edward.
hmm
In other words, he's still trying to reach them
Sure.
versus everybody else is just like, what?
Yeah, he
Well, there are
really is.
some of you wonder what the hell is he doing? And I mean, some are pretty easy because they're textbook psychology. Like
hmm
Raj, he's basically Doom, everything's fine once I'm in charge. Okay, okay, Raj, okay, okay. But the pig, Dr. Pig, he's just disturbed. He's just
Well,
one step from being a psychotic sociopath from a horror movie.
sure, and I think that's one of the reasons why the Killing Joke is so beautiful, what Alan Moore did. I wish Alan Moore could get to an age where he said, what I did was all right. I don't like the industry. I don't like how the industry does these things, but ultimately I did write some good stuff because the last joke of the Killing Joke was Batman and the Joker's whole relationship. They're both clearly insane. The difference
Yeah.
is that Batman made it across. He had a moment of insanity, and then he made it across the other side. And the Joker just can't quite make it. And for those of you that haven't read The Killing Joke, spoilers. The Killing Joke, the when Batman finally catches up with the Joker after he shot and paralyzed Barbara Gordon, who was Batgirl, now Oracle. But the reason why she's Oracle now is because he paralyzed her in The Killing Joke. Uh, when he finally catches up with the Batman basically is pleading with him. It's like it doesn't have to be this way. And the Joker says, no, it's too late for me. And then he tells a joke. And the joke is basically that there's two men who are escaping an insane asylum. One makes it across, jumps over to the other building to makes it to freedom. And the other doesn't. And the one who does make it across says, well, I'll turn on the flashlight and you can walk across the beam. And the one who didn't make the jump said, what are you kidding? You're crazy. You'll turn the light off after I get halfway through, halfway across. So the whole point is that Batman is offering an unrealistic salvation to the Joker.
Right.
Even though the Joker, even though the Batman obviously had a traumatic event and made it across. So, and people forget that. I think people forget the power of that particular sort of understanding of that character. And yeah, that's dark and gritty, but there's still hope there. And with a Superman, it's just different. Superman is just trying to do the best he can. He's not better than us. He is a product of us. The only thing that makes him special is that his Kryptonian blood makes him so that he's super powerful. His parents taught him, no, you do the right thing. You don't cheat people. You don't abuse people. If you do something, you lend a hand. I mean, it may have been speaking
That's what I
to
always try
some
to
rural
explain to somebody.
values, but
I mean, that's what I was trying to explain to somebody many times over. And I'm not talking about one person. I explain all the time because you always have to defend Superman. That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah, you do.
And here's the point: is I said you misunderstand. We'll say Hyperion versus Superman, which is basically Marvel's version of Superman. Okay, Superman has the power to move at super speed, and you see it. That's the one moment you have to give Schneider because he actually kind of borrowed it from Smallville, but it's the same thing. The guy is abusive to Superman and to someone he's trying to defend while he's basically Clark Kent.
Hmm.
You know, and then it comes out in the truck that the guy drove was all messed up because Superman did his little revenge, if you will.
Hmm.
What people don't understand is Superman's power is yes, he can lift the truck, he can fly, he can do all this, but his real power is how many times you and I and anybody else have been in a given situation and someone just hurts you, as in your pride or whatever. And if you had his power, all they would feel is a gust of wind and you see them fall over with a broken neck.
Sure.
It's that restraint.
He
It's that
has,
holdback. It's that moment to walk away and go, let's do this on a video game. Like me and my sister. Well, that's the best example. My sister did something once. We're 12 years apart, and she was like 3 years old, and she broke something, and I literally lost it. I'm picking her up by her neck, and I realized, oh, she's not doing good. I better put her down
hmm
because I'm so mad. You
hmm
understand? From there on, I fought her on a video game.
hmm
You see what I'm saying? But
Sure.
what if you don't have that restraint? What if you don't
Yeah.
have that balance?
Well, and
And
that's
that's what.
and that's what Superman represents. He represents the ability to do stuff, but he has restraint. Because I mean, he really could just grab Luthor and throw him into the sun. I mean, he really could.
Exactly.
But he doesn't. But I think he has the same relationship with Luthor that Batman has with the Joker. It's like you could, well, and you get it in All-Star Superman, which is one of the best Superman stories ever written, in my personal opinion, the Grant Morrison All-Star Superman, where
Yes, it is.
he basically says, Luther, you could have done so much instead of wasting your time hating me. He's arguably one of the smartest people on the planet, and he wasted his time trying to be liked more than Superman. That's why I kind of
I
think
mean,
Elon Musk is a wannabe Lex Luthor.
probably you got to combine it with Bezos. You got to combine it with Bezos, and I'm not talking
Yeah,
because of the hair, because
sure.
Bezos almost Luther tendencies when it comes to his rivals, and when it
Sure.
comes to some importance. Okay,
Well, you know what
but
they could do? I mean, each one of them could take just $1 billion, build all kinds of quality, low income housing, and just go through and say, hey, just, apply. If you're working a job, you've been working a job for a long time, but you can't, rent's tough. Here you go. Here's a house. I mean,
well,
they
they
could
don't
do
even have
that.
to do that. What I mean is, they don't even have to do that because, as I told you in previous conversations, there's 2 million abandoned homes, and we see them all the time on
Sh-
Makeover and all this other stuff.
Sure, just buy
So
those and have people live in those.
yeah, you can refurbish at least half of them for half their price.
I mean,
Instead,
it's like you absolutely, I mean, we just saying this to Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk straight at the camera. You could do so much. Why aren't you? You could end suffering for millions of people. So until you start doing that, I'm just going to be unimpressed by you. So yeah,
but
there
see,
it
the
is.
difference in Superman is depends upon the Superman and Lex Luthor. What I mean, some Lex Luthor is you're strange. Why are you strange? You understand what I mean? As far as
Mhm.
being able to fly or why can't you be hurt?
Yeah,
That's a scientist.
there's a little bit of xenophobia in some interpretations of Lex Luthor.
That's a scientist in him. And then you have the other another version, which is I'm the big man in town. That was during the Burn era.
Sure.
I'm the
Where
big
he
man in
was like
town.
they made him into Trump basically is what he did.
Yes, and
He
then
made him into like a Trump character.
they have the other version, which is that I hate you because you represent what I can never be because of jealousy or other
Yes.
things.
Like just general jealousy. That's I think I need to reread whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow. That it was the last Superman story before
The
the
Silver Age.
crisis. Well, before the crisis. So it was they said they basically gave Alan Moore. They said, Alan, here, do whatever the heck you want to. We're just rebooting it anyway after the crisis. And so, you know, he did a story, Whatever Happened to the Man from let me see if I can get the right name.
Man
Whatever
of
happened to the
Tomorrow.
man, whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow. And it was really good. It was another really good story. Um because it was, the last Superman story and it was pretty good. I definitely recommend checking it out. But it is that kind of thing. It's like, why is Luthor so envious? It's like what makes these people who could do so much good? Like if you dumped $1 billion on me, certainly I would get a modest house, a car that's paid for, pay for my mother's house. But after that, I mean, why would I want to like get into some pissing contest of who's going to be the first trillionaire?
Well, see, I differ in the sense that I wouldn't mind being a trillionaire, wouldn't mind being a billionaire, but here's where I'm saying that we are the same. Is that, if I trillion, hey, have the money build a fortress of altitude for real. Not saying I would, you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a cutoff point, is what I'm trying to say. People like us. That's what I mean. You know,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to talk about Bezos, the idea of a $600 million wedding. You're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, okay, this is beyond the gold foil cakes.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sure.
what are you giving people for this $600 million wedding? Not even $6 million, $600 million. I mean,
Yeah.
and a wedding dress, okay, we'll say 10 million for the dress, maybe spider silk. I don't know. Okay, we'll
Well,
say 20 million.
yeah. I mean, this is going to be in our state. We live in Colorado for those listening. Yeah, he's gonna $600 million wedding. And it's like, with $600 million, he could probably make every single person in Colorado give him just a $5,000 check, which
I'm not
or a
even.
$500 check. You could certainly do that, right? I mean,
I'm
there's
not even going there. I'll go that he could buy. buy about, oh, I don't know, about 200 condos,
Sure, and have
maybe
people who are
maybe
living
600
paycheck to
100 condo
paycheck.
buildings.
Yeah, living
No, I was just
paycheck to
gonna say get
paycheck.
rid of the homeless.
Yeah,
Just get rid of the homeless, and
yeah,
still probably have 400 million left.
yeah,
Because
right? I mean, it's
I mean,
like,
everybody always says, experience is more important than stuff, but that's the antithesis of really, really.
yeah,
Because
I
they'll get
mean,
on us for a $2 million Superman or $1 million Spider-Man. They'll get on us, but we still have that later.
sure. And it's
This
not,
wedding is not going to be there later.
yeah, and it's not like looking for a handout, but it's just like you have the power because of the present paradigm to do so much good, and you don't, and you,
Well, I mean, it's like a Red Superman, Red Sun Superman. You ever seen that one?
hmm
Okay,
yeah,
you
Red
remember when
Sun.
Superman, yes, when Superman basically gave up his powers because Luthor says, "What do you want to be like?" The Earth be like a city in a bottle. Struck him in the core about Krypton. But
hmm
when he did that, Luthor actually did improve the world. I mean, that was the thing, but the cost had to be that Superman had to step down or hide or leave. And it's like, really? Because then you harken back to Smallville when they had the blur.
hmm
There was no Superman. They didn't have the rights to Superman or whatever. But, people fall out of a tree and all of a sudden they caught a branch that they didn't know.
hmm
You understand? Or other things happen. Or mysteriously they felt a rush of air that pushed them off of the cliff they were getting ready to fall off, push them back.
hmm
Yeah. I mean, realistically, that would make sense that Superman would do that rather than just retire.
Sure.
You know.
Well, and so I think that with this trailer, it's definitely harkening back to a Superman that is, that hopeful figure. It's not about making him into Christ or some kind of Messiah type figure. It's just about he's just a good dude, who happens to have superpowers. And I don't quite know why all the people are mad at him when he goes into the skyscraper, Stag skyscraper. Did he? I don't, I mean, I'm a little sort of tired of that as well. It's like, oh, this guy that did all these crazy super things, he messed up once. I'm mad at him permanently now. I'm gonna throw this can at him. I'm just kind of like, come on. If
Well, that's kind of
I mean,
realistic
if
with today's
Superman,
society.
if Superman made a mistake, I'd be like, dude, at least he was trying.
Well,
Especially
like
if
I
he's
said,
like saved a bunch of people but lost a few.
what I'm saying that is realistic about today's society, though. Really, it is. Is petty grateful is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Is that like for instance, there's a disaster of some sort, and the fireman has the choice to save 100 people or save the one person's child. So he goes
hmm
and saves the 100 people. Well, the parent's going to say, "Well, but you didn't save my child." And we can go, "Yeah, you're right, but there was 100 people,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like I just let those 100 people, save them and then come back and try to save your child." You see, that's the part they miss.
hmm
But that's where Lois is supposed to be in for Superman. Realistically, that's it. Is those little moments that they don't talk about where he had to choose.
Well, who do you think the big bad is in this new Superman film? Because he is getting tackled by somebody. I mean, I guess it could have been another Kryptonian, like a General Zod or something.
It doesn't have to be Zod. It could be Ultraman. We
Oh,
know,
like
as
the
we said,
other bad.
multiple.
Oh, that'd be great. It'd be funny is if they made Cavill, made Henry Cavill like Earth, Earth 2 Superman, Ultraman. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if he was younger, younger,
Sure, sure,
the guy who played the strongman in Mission Impossible, the original series, he would make a
sure,
good Ultra.
sure. Um, but in general, so on a what grade would you give the trailer? A through F.
I would give it an A minus, and the only reason because we don't know what else is coming, so you don't want to
Sure,
jump up and get super hype.
sure,
And then when
sure.
it's all said and done,
I
I mean, it's kind of like Godzilla, King of the Monsters. A lot of people are going, "Well, it's super good," or they saw too much or whatever else. But to me, it's like everything. If you love the character, like you in the Fantastic Four is a very good example.
mm-hmm.
Some iterations, the best way to put it is like me and Superman. There is no perfect one. You wish that you could take all the perfect aspects and put it in one movie.
Sure.
That's the
I
best way to put it.
I do like the Superman 1 and 2 of Christopher Reeve. I thought that was really exemplified that character. Um,
Hmm.
I did like the Byrne run of Superman actually because I thought that what he made Superman a bit he made
Relatable.
well, not even just that. He made him smarter. Like, I mean, Superman's always been not a stupid character. But I think that he made him much more like the way that Grant Morrison portrays him in All-Star Superman. It's like, no, Superman's a pretty smart dude. And so he has to think about things in terms of physics and how this would affect his body and how how to manage his time because it's if he has to be in two places at once and how what the best path is and all of those things. And so there, if I recall correctly, and I'll have to reread them now getting ready for the Superman movie, but I feel like in those Superman the Burn issues of Superman that after he had done the Man of Steel, the last page was always, well, this is how I did it, and this is why it worked. And it was very almost old school Flash, like when when the
Well,
old
yeah,
school
because
Flash, the science pages of the old school Flash.
it's
Yeah.
like a issue X-Men issue 137,
Mm-hmm.
and it was Superman, I think 349, the original series.
Mm-hmm.
One Superman is fighting a Viking similar to Thor,
Sure.
and the other was Jean Grey returns after she died in 135. And
Or
it's
you mean
not
137? Because the
was
death of Jean Grey was 130 X-Men 137.
well, it
And
was
then she
like two
came
issues
back
later.
and then she came back and well, she died sort of in 101 and
Well, I'm saying she died in,
came
I
back
thought
in
she died in
Phoenix.
135, but she might
Nope.
have died in 137.
Yeah, it was
But it was two
137.
issues later, and they were on the Shi'ar Empire was chasing Nightcrawler and Kitty Pryde,
Uh-huh.
and she had gotten onto a hologram machine that made her look like Jean Grey. That's what
Oh.
got together.
Yeah, I remember which one you're talking about. Yeah, there was a period
Yeah,
where
that
yeah.
yeah, because she was on the cover.
Yeah.
But my point is, what inspired Marvel Universe, what inspired DC's Who was both those issues. You had the letter page. They don't have those no more.
Yeah.
You had the letter page, and in the X-Men, a fan who had grown up become a scientist went on a 5 paragraph explanation on Nightcrawler's powers.
Sure.
And then in Superman, the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That same issue I told you about. Someone had explained Superman's power. He said, actually, Superman only has really one power. He can control tachyons, but he moves it in different ways. And you're just like, okay, that makes sense. The way he was explaining it, because
Sure.
tachyons can absorb the blows. Tachyons can move faster than light, hence the speed.
Sure.
You know, it's
And
like,
I think yeah, and so I think that Byrne really did a good job of throwing more science into Superman. It's kind of like what everybody's done with Iron Man in the last 10 years. It's like, oh, now that we know about computers and touch screens, let's do Iron Man like an advancement of that. And yeah, so but I did approve. I do like that. Um, so yeah, I guess I'm excited. I give it an A minus as well. I think that just throwing a Green Lantern in a Superman movie is enough almost for me.
well, it's the
Because
specific one they're throwing in there. Let's be
and
honest. It's the
yeah,
specific one.
yeah, Guy Gardner is just a jerk, and I think that Nathan
I mean,
Fillion,
he's the one that's more like a Green Lantern that was made today, as
yeah,
far as a merger of the two ideologies.
yes,
It really
yes,
would. I mean, because unlike Ted Knight, the original Wildcat, they did an issue of him about 7 years ago,
mm-hmm,
where he was with the Justice League, his Justice Society, and he had basically they have enhanced his power that he has 9 lives, and each time he has a 9 life, it resets its body so he can heal.
uh-huh,
So in a way, he's immortal to the degree. In other words, he has like 78 years, and even though he could be 50, it'll give him 78 more years, if that makes any sense.
yeah, it does. I
Okay.
did like the Dale Eaglesham run of JSA. It was Jeff Johns and Dale Eaglesham. Dale Eaglesham, his art is just phenomenal. But anyway, I remember
And
him
so
having a
what they had is that
Wildcat episode. issue. But go
Right.
on.
And so he was I think it was Mr. Terrific. It was Mr. Terrific, I believe. And he said something about colored. And someone jumped up. That's not how we say it. He says, you can't take it out of me. And that's what people don't understand when they go with this cancel culture or this corrective culture.
Hmm.
Intention versus actuality.
Sure.
Yeah. And that's one of the things about comicdom, and that is the weakness of Marvel to a degree DC, but more Marvel. I'm talking about as far as their movies go. The best example is the Ancient One
Hmm.
catering to China. I
Sure. They
mean, I
should have
have
just made it.
nothing
Should have
against
made
the
it.
female woman.
Sure. Should have just made it Tibetan, but that would have eliminated
I
the
mean, if
Chinese
anybody,
audience.
I mean, if anybody would have made James Hong, if you want to get slightly out of it, you know, because
Yeah.
he
It would have
has
been.
the look.
It would have been
He has the
nice.
look,
It would have
you
been
know.
nice. I don't know why they didn't do that, but yeah, there's these corrective actions that it's one thing to make a corrective action because something is crazy racist. And a certain, wise men of the East kind of trope could be seen that way. But the real reason was we didn't want to alienate all of the money coming from overseas markets and how China would say, "Oh, you're saying he's from Tibet? Tibet doesn't exist. It's only China, so we're not going to distribute this film." And you
Exactly.
lose
It's the
and
same
you
thing
lose
they
all
did
it's
with
it's more it's about
Kids
money.
from Star Wars.
It's not about being quote unquote woke. It's about cash and commerce. But
I'm saying it's the same thing about the actor who played Finn in the new Star Wars. You know, because he
yeah,
was supposed to be a predominant character in the three. Him and Tran Rose, his girlfriend,
yeah, and
were
they
supposed to
just
be predominant. And
yeah,
then
they
our
just
culture,
mhm,
as in those minions of our culture, because you know what
mhm.
I'm talking about.
Sure.
There are those of us that, because the advantage of being our hue is that as much as in a way we are, and I hate to say this, because I won't say for you, but me, I have had a moment of temporal racism. They'll go, wait a minute, because it's harkening back to how I was treated. It has nothing to do with that person.
Mhm.
Has nothing to do with them. But as you get older, you stop doing that. You go, okay, that's just stupid. You know.
Yeah.
But some people, they just adamant. They won't change.
Sure. Sure. And
They're
and I
determined.
think but like you say, it depends on the intention. There have been people that might use the wrong term but are absolutely an ally. And there are some people that will use the exact right term and they will disabuse you of any of your rights. They'll get rid of any of your rights.
Yeah, or
So
they do
I believe it's
like they
disabuse,
do
but
for
they'll take your rights away, but they'll never call you the N-word and they'll never call you any derogatory thing. So it's
well,
not
I'm saying
about
it's
that.
just like neurodiversity. What I mean by neurodiversity, forget about me. It's
Mhm.
similar to the same thing with races. They
Mhm.
do a form of ableism.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like they used to have that skit on Mad TV where I forgot what his name was. I think his name was Billy Kim,
Hmm.
but he was Asian, and that was one of his skits. Was that because he was Asian, even though he was Korean, like oh my God, he knows kung fu. I'm Korean. You know that was the
It
whole
would be
skit.
it would
But
be Taekwondo if it was anything.
I was saying, but
If you're
they
gonna
kept on,
make a stereotype.
yeah, but that's the whole point is they kept on making a stereotype because of his look rather than who he
Sure.
was.
Sure.
And they go, oh my God, he knows how to make sushi. No.
Nope. That would be Japanese. Yeah, I think yeah. So but I do
And just like
think
us, you know how to play basketball.
yeah, it's like, nope, not really. I'm much more into hockey anyway. But I think
Yep.
that yeah, so a good trailer, definitely a good trailer. We'll see how it develops. I think he'll probably stick the landing. I think you just have to make him a figure of hope and not cynicism and have other characters who are cynical or whatever be riding shotgun. I mean, that's why the DC universe is a universe. It's not just Superman and it's not just Batman. There's a lot more to that universe. I mean, there
Well,
are
that's
people,
the
it's so funny to me that there was a period of time when I could have talked about Tony Stark and no one would have known what I was talking about except a comic book fan. And now you can say Tony Stark and everybody knows. Everybody knows Tony Stark. Everybody knows,
but see,
any
they
number
don't
of things.
understand like Tony Stark and Our Man. now Century. What I mean by Century is they wanted to do it in DC, but DC said it no, so they did it with Century. Okay,
Hmm.
but the whole point is that they have addictions. I mean, because the lady who wanted to change Our Man, she wanted. Now think about this: you have superpowers for 1 hour, you're going to be addicted.
Yeah, yeah.
You're going to be addicted.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't argue with that, you know?
That's what, that's one of the things that I wish somebody would really explore because DC's, I'll be honest, possible hot take. I I feel like DC is still writing comics. Marvel is writing intellectual property. Like right now, Marvel, there's so many things that are going on in Marvel Universe that are just we're just trying to do an extended advertisement for the movies. It's like there are characters nobody ever cared about that because they're in movies, they're being published. Other characters that are great, you can't hear anything from them. They weren't interested
Or
in the
either that,
Fantastic
or they
Four
changed
until
the
they could make a
concept.
movie. Huh?
Or they changed the concept. What I mean is like they have the 9 lives of Spider-Man now, which is Mystic Base. You
Sure.
understand? Still Spider-Man, but they made it Mystic Base. But you're like, hasn't that man gone through enough?
Right. Well, so I guess long story short, because I'm gonna have to wrap it up a little bit, but we do like the trailer. We have great
Right.
hope for him to do Superman right. Who, ladies and gentlemen, Superman's worthy of your respect. He was the first. He wasn't the
Oh, let's be
first.
honest too. Also, is that we get to see a reunion of sorts. Lex Luthor is played by the guy who played Beast in First Class X-Men,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
and Mr. Terrific is played by the guy who played Darwin in First Class.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, there you go. Well, yeah. So, I mean, high hopes for it. Um, we didn't get to Marvel Rivals, but had. Do you have a functioning computer, decent functioning computer yet?
Yeah, I could try it. We'll see how decent
It's
it is.
it's free. Definitely try Marvel Rivals. Maybe we'll talk about that. Oh, we never got to our New Year's resolutions.
Well, my New Year's resolution is to enjoy my geekhood.
Okay, let's go through a few. What are your, okay, so give me five geek related resolutions.
I want to go to the G Fest, the Godzilla convention,
Okay, go to the Godzilla
and
convention. That's one.
that's one. And I want to go to all the conventions here in Colorado within reason, because
Okay,
sometimes they're back to back, and you really can't. I mean, there's one last week and the next week, and you just don't have the money.
Godzilla
Yeah.
convention and all Colorado conventions. Okay, that's two.
Get stay on Absolute as in the Absolute DC universe.
Get an absolute, I'm sorry, what was that?
They relaunched a universe in DC. The Absolute universe is based upon Darkseid being God.
Oh, so get into that. Get into the absolute
Mhm.
universe. Okay. Godzilla Con, Colorado conventions, absolute
Superman Day
DC.
One. Superman Day One.
Yep. Superman Day One. That's four.
Mm. And do some Legos.
And do some Legos. We need to call our friend Etienne.
Yes, we do.
Okay. My five, finish all of the finish at least one of my models, the either Gundam or Warhammer. One of the two. Probably Gundam. I got the Gundam Thunderbolt Gundam. So it's great. Finish that. That's one. Uh Maybe do a panel at NDK, I think. Do a panel at the Nandescon, the anime convention here in Colorado. I like to do anime debate, and have
Mm.
people argue different things in anime, and we choose a winner, choose some judges, and choose a winner. So I think I'll propose that. That's two. Probably see the Superman in IMAX.
Hmm.
I think I'm gonna check it out in IMAX. I haven't done too many IMAXs. I'm gonna check out Soups in IMAX. That's three. Four. Uh, actually finish Baldur's Gate to completion. And 5, try to make it so that we have one of these old man blerds every other week.
Let's go for it.
Yes. So those are our new nerd resolutions, old man blurred resolutions. And don't be Lex Luthor. Try to be Superman if you can, especially if you're a billionaire. Yes, I'm speaking to all of those billionaires. They know who they are. Don't be Lex Luthor. Don't try to be Lex Luthor because, frankly, some of you aren't necessarily as
Smart.
yeah, well, yes. I mean, he's like a scientific genius, right? I mean, some of these people are just people who are rich and bought a thing. But,
Yeah, or exploitive of the situation.
so rather than cast aspersions, just don't be Lex. Don't be Lex. Be Superman.
Make that
And-
your resolution.
Yeah, and if you want to send us your resolutions, you can send it to Terrence at drakestorm@gmail.com or me, John, at thatsoquantum@gmail.com. And send us your resolutions, or just in the comments here on YouTube, just send us what your geek resolutions are. And like we always say, if don't be a stranger.
Just be strange.
Yeah, and we will try to be more consistent. That was my resolution. Try and be more consistent. Many things coming. So,
So sorry for all the ranting people, but we've had so much because we've been gone for so long.
we have. I mean, life has been happening at us in spades. So hopefully you missed us. And hopefully we'll give you more consistent content, more amusing content as it goes. But yeah, there it is. All right. Take care, everybody. Hope you have a pleasant new year and had a pleasant new year. And, see you in the funny papers, so to speak.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.